talk about meeting the Adult ESOL Challenge. My name is Jen Frazier, and I'm the Director of Institutional Solutions at Rosetta Stone. And on behalf of Rosetta Stone Education, we want to welcome you to today's presentation. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, first, understanding the challenges for adult ESOL, ELL programs, reviewing the ingredients and the recipe for success for a program implementation. We're also going to discuss technology, how it can be implemented through a blended instruction environment to improve outcomes. And last but not least, we're going to understand the tools and the processes necessary to monitor and manage the success of learners as well as the success of the overall program. All of these objectives are wrapped around a case study discussion about the implementation at Orange County Public Schools Adult ESOL program. But let's first look at some key ingredients when we talk about adult ESOL or adult ELL programs. So many of these programs offer services or instruction below the post-secondary level for individuals who are 16 years of age and over and who are not enrolled in secondary school. The purpose is to attain sufficient mastery of basic educational skills and to be able to function effectively in society. And the major areas of support include adult basic education, adult secondary education, and English language acquisition. As far as focused areas, basic skills are where we focus: reading, writing, math, English language competency, as well as problem solving. I love this chart here because it talks about that more than 40 million adults have no high school education at all, and that's 21% of our population. Now this really hits home with me because my father has only an 8th grade education. He went into the military and then went to business school, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. So although he was based here in the United States, the fact that he himself needed some additional education and was able to get some back when he was younger, he's 80 now, through the business school itself. Secondly, we can see at this chart that 33% of participants in the targeted adult ed group, we find that with these learners, English is their second language, not their primary language. So you have to think about programs and program structure that can reach adults with limited English proficiency. You know, obviously there's a gap in communication skills that needs to be filled. So the right design is what will lead to the right success. And then last but not least, the largest population of adult learners in English are over 60 years of age. In fact, you can see here in the chart that when we're looking at these learners, you're basically dealing with approximately 37% of the population is over 60. The second largest, in the yellow there, represents the 22 to 44-year-olds. Now, look at these groups themselves. They're very distinct. They're separated by decades of years. Obviously, if you have a program that serves both groups, differentiation is needed. Sometimes technology is used to help differentiate. But when technology is used, it's got to be a program that can cater to not only digital natives that are used to using technologies, but also digital immigrants. So we're going to talk today about how programs can be personalized so that it fits the needs of learners and doesn't assume that all learners are equal. So let's move and look into some of the details of a very successful program. We have with us Tiffany Barnes, who's the Adult ESOL District Specialist at Orange County Public Schools. I want to welcome her today, and we're going to talk about her implementation. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Tiffany. Tiffany is currently, as I said, the Adult ESOL District Specialist for Orange County Public Schools. Located in Orlando, Florida. It's the nation's 11th largest school district. She's worked in this role for over 4 years and has been an educator to students of all ages for more than 13 years. She's a member of many associations, the State of Florida Adult ESOL Advisory Committee, and she's a state certified trainer for the CASAS test. And she really discovered her passion to want to teach English when she was working in the K-12 environment. And I just learned that Tiffany was a third grade teacher. That's a hard grade to be working with. So she had extremely positive experience in K-12, and that led her into wanting to work with adults. And she's earned a bachelor degree from Florida A&M in education, which is located in Tallahassee, Florida, and her master's degree is in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale. She's a lifelong learner. She belongs to the International TESOL organization. She belongs to the Adult and Community Education of Florida. She's also an International Honor Society member in education. She's a native Floridian and has a fondness for traveling, particularly abroad, and loves learning about new cultures. And Tiffany, I just want to say welcome to the session. I can't wait for you to be able to share your story with those that are in attendance today. So let's just begin with your story. Tell me a little bit about the adult ESOL classes that you have at Orange County Public Schools. How are they organized? How are they structured?
Well, hi, Jen, and to everyone on the WebEx. I just want to thank you for allowing me to participate today and join you from what is usually sunny Orlando, Florida, but right now we have quite a few thunderstorms going on. I am a member, like you said, of the Orange County Public Schools Adult Ed District team, and our classes are structured in the fact that we have 4 technical centers that offer a variety of the adult general education, so the adult basic ed, GED prep, as well as English language learner or adult ESOL classes. We offer flexible scheduling so that students can attend class day and evening. And in addition to the classes at the tech centers, we have classes at community sites located throughout Central Florida.
Fantastic. And Tiffany, we were talking about earlier the targeted ages being 16 to adult and older. Tell me a little bit about the age of your learners and a little bit about what your courses are focused on, how they're structured.
Well, Jen, we like to say in Orange County that we serve everyone from ages 16 through 99. And we often joke about that. That's our little inside joke. But it really is true, as your graphic you showed earlier displayed, that in adult education you really run the gamut of ages served. I would say our average age of our students can, for ESOL specifically, be about late 20s to early 30s. As far as our program goals and focus, we are a non-credit English language courses is what we offer. They're work and life skills based. So we're kind of different than the EAP programs that are more housed at the colleges. Ours is life and skills and workplace based. And so our goal is really career. Oh. That's the goal of our students that are learning English because they want to gain or maintain employment.
Yeah, so employment, and would you say, what kind of skills do you primarily focus on? Is it an all skills program, or is it something that's focusing more on, let's say, oral communication?
We actually focus on all 4 domains of language development. So we focus on reading, writing, listening, and speaking for our adult ESOL learners. And the instruction is provided within the context of work and life skills. We have 7 adult ESOL standards, or big umbrella categories in the state of Florida, ranging from employment to nutrition, safety, travel, things of that nature. And then we also embed the grammar instruction, which we know is very important when someone is trying to learn a new language. But our primary focus is careers, as probably a lot of federal funded programs are. We're funded by the Workforce Investment Act, Title II. And so our focus is really to have students learn English so that they can increase the workforce for the state of Florida.
Fantastic. So let's just talk a little bit about your program demographics. Let's first talk about kind of the history of your program, and tell me a little bit about the learners that are participating.
Sure. Well, I actually just found out this information today, Jen, because I wanted to make sure to share it with you and our and everyone on the WebEx today. We have offered adult ESOL in Orange County for over 40 years. I spoke to a teacher who hasn't quite been teaching that long, but almost that long, and she's actually been fortunate enough to teach adult ESOL for majority over 35 years. So the program has been in our county about maybe 1973, 74 is when it started. And currently, our current demographics is we serve annually about a little over 5,000 ESOL students. Now, the whole overarching umbrella of adult education, we serve around 10 to 12,000 students between adult basic ed, GED prep, and ESOL. But just as your other slide displayed, the majority of our students are English language learners. And so our adult ESOL program has the largest enrollment of all of our adult education classes. And just a little information about the community or the area that we're trying to serve. Orange County has on average about 1.2 million. I think that's the statistics from the last census update in this area. And a third of the population, about 410,000, speak a language other than English in the home. That's documented. And our students come from all over the globe. We have currently 212 countries represented in our program and students speaking 105 different languages and dialects.
Wow. Well, and you know, it's interesting. You and I had chatted about this, and you said you are an administrative team of one. and it's a large program, but then you have a really neat personnel structure that you've put into place. I mean, it's not just you and the teachers, it's actually you and another level coordinators in between you and the teachers that really pull this thing together. So, you know, sometimes I say it takes a village. Would you like to talk a little bit about what your village looks like, your support?
Absolutely. And specifically in regards to when you're trying to come up with an online solution, as we were at the time, to help service the needs of our English language learners. We thought that we know we're going to have the teachers that will use the program or be in the classroom when the students are using the program, and we'll have the administrators, and there'll be people such as myself at the district level to monitor. But we wanted that added layer, and so we have a role such as coordinator, and this is a person that is designed in the online program to register students into the program. They can deactivate students, activate them when they move up or they progress, as we'll talk about a little later on through their CASAS test. They can reassign them to their next teacher. And I tell you, there's no bigger smile that you get when a teacher attends a training for an online program, and you can tell them when they go back to their classroom, all their students will automatically be enrolled in the program because our coordinators have done that for us. So we found that structure very beneficial to us here in Orange County.
Yeah, so the teacher can focus on what they do best, which is teach, and the coordinators can help administrate the wrapper around that for, you know, the online piece that helps complement their classroom. I really like that. So let's move on to talk a little bit about your learners. I know we've chatted some about their background, and we talked about their age, but can you share with me some additional information regarding, you know, the demographics of these learners, their English proficiency levels, perhaps their work experience?
Sure, absolutely. So because we are a federally funded program, our classes are structured according to the National Reporting System, or NRS, 6 levels of English language proficiency as assessed by an exam, and we use CASAS. CASAS. It stands for the Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment Systems, and that's the test that we use here in Orange County, and we assess in reading and listening, although all 4 modalities are taught. So we offer the ESOL program, but then within that program, students may fit into any of the 6 levels of English language proficiency, which, like I said, can be as high as advanced students that perhaps, we have someone that formerly was educated in their country and they've received some education of English already, or someone that maybe didn't even finish through elementary age schooling in their native country. And then again, as regards to demographic, like I said, 212 countries, over 105 different languages and dialects. Because we are in Florida, we do have a heavy Hispanic as well as Haitian, Creole speaking population, and Brazilian. Portuguese speaking is also one of our languages that is on the rise as far as the native languages of our students.
Wow, I was looking at the case study, and everyone will have a copy of this at the end of the session, but you quote in the case study that students that live in Central Florida it's a very diverse population, and that they could technically live and function for years and never have to speak English. But the problem is that they have to learn English in order to be able to be successful in their work and in their employment. So I'm assuming that most of the career goals and a lot of the career goals of your learners are work-oriented, but I'm sure there are other goals as well that perhaps are personal driven in terms of wanting to learn English.
Absolutely. The work goal or career goal is probably predominant for most of our students. But as you mentioned, we are in Florida, and so we do, similar to other areas such as South Florida, we have these pockets of communities in Central Florida where our students can live and function and never speak English. They can go to grocery stores or, maybe even certain banking institutions, and it's just a given that someone there, especially if it's a popular language like Spanish or Portuguese, and they feel someone will be able to speak and communicate with them. But when it comes to getting employment and seeking employment, while it is beneficial to obviously be bilingual, multilingual, they want to be able to communicate proficiently in English. Now, for those students that have kind of personal goals, it kind of varies depending on the tech center, just as any other county or any other area. Certain schools cater to different demographic, and so we do have some sites where it's a lot of stay-at-home parents, and they just want to learn English so they can communicate better with their child's teacher, or so that maybe they can become a more active member of the community, but they have no interest in gaining employment or getting promoted. And so it does vary. And also, I just want to mention the educational background of our students is also extremely varied. Once again, you can have an ER physician, an architect, a psychologist, someone that has an advanced degree from their country, be in the same classroom with someone that did not finish elementary age schooling, particularly if you kind of know the history of some of the countries you're serving, such as Mexico or Haiti. So you kind of know the situation there, and at what age students that are able to go to school for free, what age they're schooled up into, and then where finances play a part in economics, and they may not be able to continue unless they're at a certain socioeconomic status. And so it really varies.
Oh, fantastic. Well, when I think about your implementation where you're blending and marrying together powerful classroom instruction with technology, I'm just going to call that technagogy, technology and pedagogy coming together. One thing that I've noticed is, the classroom is so differentiated that you really have to consider learning styles and levels of proficiency and confidence to speak, everything that's listed here on the screens, technology skills and of course time. Adult learners don't have a whole lot of time sometimes to be able to do what they need to do. So could you just talk to some of these as it applies to your blended program at Orange County?
Absolutely. And I do want to stress that that model blended, because that's what we have chosen to incorporate here in Orange County. We are using Rosetta Stone as an online program to complement the direct instruction that our students are receiving from teachers. But one of the things you mentioned in the previous slide was time management. So here in Orange County, for example, it even varies the amount of instruction that a student will receive. Our full-time students that are able to attend class during the day, they can receive as much as 30 hours of instruction a week because they attend class 5 days a week, 6 hours a day, kind of like a typical high school schedule. But then we have our community sites at churches or elementary schools or community centers in the evening, and they may only meet twice a week. 3 hours each night in the evening, so 6 hours a week. And so we thought about, well, that's very different. 30 hours of instruction in English, 6 hours of instruction in English. And then also we're remembering that because of the area we serve, some of our students are very comfortable in their own cultural communities, and the only English they may practice is when they're at school. And then when they leave, they may never speak the native language. And so for us, looking at how to really balance that out. And so an online solution is where we chose to go because it can extend learning beyond the classroom. So that student that is receiving 6 hours of instruction a week now has access to a program where they can practice at home. They can practice speaking. The other thing you saw on the slide said confidence to speak. That is one of the biggest pluses we hear from teachers about the program, is that it gives those beginning students, those native speakers that have perhaps just arrived or just had the courage to seek schooling in the United States for the first time, it gives them the courage to speak because they're speaking in the program immediately. And they may not be ready to share in a small group setting, but in the computer it's just them, and they're encouraged to speak on the microphone. So we take time management into play. Also, like I said, the confidence to speak, the learning style. We know we have visual learners, auditory learners, learners that need to be up and move, and kinesthetic learners. And then I think most ESOL teachers just instinctively bring that musicality into the classroom with, songs and chanting and lyrics. And so we definitely you have to take all of those into consideration when you're trying to come up with a program to fit your institution's needs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so when we talk about how you all have met the challenges in terms of differentiating the classroom and dealing with different levels of students and being able to accomplish moving them up the testing scale or the CASA scale and actually building proficiency. Can you talk a little bit about how Orange County, how your program has met those challenges?
Yes, there are absolutely challenges, as I'm sure everyone participating today can relate to. And some of them we've already spoke about. Flexibility, a web-based solution that, like I said, extends learning beyond the classroom. Now for us, because we're tied to the CASAS test and we have those 6 levels of language proficiency, we chose to identify our learners that were most in need. So for example, we identified our 3 lowest levels according to the NRS levels, and I'm sorry, you might be hearing a little background noise, I do apologize, and we chose to assign those students licenses first because we do have limited resources and we weren't able to purchase a license for every student, so that we can really see the immediate benefit to those students. And that structure has proven to work well for us here in Orange County.
Oh, fantastic. And speaking of structure, let's talk about the components of success. So I said earlier that there are a lot of programs that have great ingredients, but it's how the ingredients come together that delivers results. So here are your 4 ingredients. Can you talk to how these ingredients have really supported the success of your program?
Absolutely. And these are so key, the things that you have right now represented on the slide. So it starts obviously with facilitated instruction or direct instruction. You can have the best web-based program in the world, but we know at the end of the day it is teachers that are going to have the biggest impact on your learners and on any learning gains that your institution would be responsible for. So in Orange County, we have qualified, certified instructors that deliver our ESOL instruction in the classrooms. Sometimes there's a notion that people think, well, it's a life skills, work skills based program. Anyone can teach that. That's not true, and we don't adopt that philosophy here. We know that teaching a language, whether it's a second language or a third or fourth language, is very critical. And so we make sure to have those instructors that are qualified. And there are things that we have in place in Florida, such as a ESOL or TESOL certificate or endorsement that we would look for, as well as perhaps some reading certification. And then as well, looking at the supplemental resources, like I said, using something, a program to benefit the direct instruction, the blended model, that also has instructor resources. And so that's one of the good things that has worked well with us with Rosetta. And then extending the learning beyond the classroom. That's real. I cannot stress enough the importance of that because learners, you only see them for a small amount of time. Even our learners that are fortunate enough to receive 30 hours of instruction a week, that doesn't compare to the amount of time that they're out in the world. And are they practicing the English? Are they watching maybe the news for 30 minutes like their instructor has required of them? And so when you have something that is online, it extends the learning, and then it can kind of bring learning together as a family or as a community, because we know that it happens. We hear the stories from students where maybe they're the only one that can afford, because in Florida we do have tuition, probably one of the few states that have tuition for adult education. So maybe they were the only one that could afford the program, afford to attend class. But then when they go home, it becomes a family thing where they then tell abuela or abuelo the words that they've learned. They share with them. And so extending the learning beyond the classroom is it's very important. And then in the 21st century with smartphones and tablets, it's really the way to go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, mobile apps have helped you extend the technology beyond the classroom, but even for your learners that don't have computers at home, which I'm not sure, Tiffany, what percentage that would be that doesn't have technology, being able to use those supplemental resources, has that provided a nice extension of the classroom?
Uh-oh.
Has that created an extension of the classroom, be able to send some of those worksheets home and if they didn't have a computer at home?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me? Yes. My audio was cutting in and out, so please let me know via the chat
That's okay.
box if you can hear me. Um,
We can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me, Tiffany?
can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you great. Can
I
you hear
can.
me?
Didn't mean to sound like that
Good.
commercial.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's
Yes,
okay.
I
And
can.
listen, what
But
I
I
was
didn't hear the
asking is,
question. Can you repeat it, please?
sure, I said for the at-home study, it doesn't have to always be on a computer. Are you using supplemental resources and activities from the classroom you're sending home as well? Are
Some
you
of our
using any of those
teachers are
supple?
beginning to,
Yes.
well, this year, yes, some of our teachers are beginning to incorporate those supplemental resources more so this year. This is our third full year of implementation, and so the first year was kind of just learning this program and what is it about. But now we've seen that, as well as the mobile app that is available, has been beneficial as well.
Oh, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about criteria. I mean, you have powerful instruction in the classroom, and you were looking for technology that could complement what you're doing. What Let's talk about the criteria, what you put in place in selecting a technology that you could partner with.
Well, when we looked at our criteria for looking at an online solution, from a district or administrative standpoint, the first thing we looked at was, is this program cutting edge? Is it web based, network based? Will it have a mobile app? Can it work on a tablet, smartphone, things of that nature? Just because we want to make sure that we're investing our funds towards 21st century, really things that are cutting edge moving forward. And then as far as the student point of view, we looked at the ease of use. Is this user friendly? Because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes our students that speak the least amount of English have the least amount of technology skills. And so if it's cumbersome, if they can't really even figure out how to log in, that's going to be an issue, and they may have a negative attitude toward it before they even start the program. Then we looked at, does it address all four domains of language development? Does it have writing and reading and listening and speaking? Is there grammar practice? And so those are some of the things that we looked at. And then once again, from the administrative piece, we looked at reporting, because I'm sure many can attest to that you have to answer those questions about who's using this? Why did we invest in this? So we want to be able to say, you know, very easily the number of students that are taking advantage, the number of hours, usage hours that we have, and then also tracking the progress of students. In our case, it's CASAS, which is our assessment instrument, and how can we track that back to usage in the program and positive results for testing. And so you really have this graphic really details the key elements that you would look for when looking to find an online solution to either complement your direct instruction, or whether it be the a blended model or a whole distance learning model.
So Tiffany, how important was piloting a program to your success?
Oh, it was very important. I would venture to say it was most important, because I know that had we not been able to pilot it, we would not have been able to eventually go district wide with it. And so what we looked at was, I believe it was 2009-10, we looked at a pilot, very small, just a few teachers, as a pilot can be, but we looked at who are we trying to serve. And really that's where we got the feedback to decide to use the program with our 3 lowest levels of English language proficiency, because we saw how they took off in the program the most during the pilot time. And that's where you can kind of see the structure of the program. You can get ideas that would help you to figure out a benchmark that you would set for usage for students. And so the pilot is very important. I think that you want to be strategic when selecting which teachers or classrooms would participate in the pilot, because you got to think about who you're trying to serve. For us, we knew, but we just wanted to make sure. We figured that this would be a fit for our lower levels of English language proficient students, because we knew we had a gap there already as far as technology. We had some things in place for our higher level students, but our lower level students were feeling left out. And I didn't think that it was responsible to say, oh, when you achieve a certain score, then you'll be able to go on the computer. We wanted to get them day one right into technology, no matter what level they came in. But I digress a little bit, but the pilot ability to pilot it, and the strategic group of students is very important to the success if you're thinking about doing a big implementation as we have years later.
Yes, and I think another thing that's very important, and what I've learned from your success, is kind of your strategy that you used. So, these are the components to, once you selected your technology, the components of the strategy, from onboarding to your blended instruction techniques to benchmarking and reporting and professional development. So what I thought, Tiffany, we would do is look at each one of these one at a time and talk about how your strategy works, starting first with onboarding teachers.
And it's really key that we're starting there first, because I feel like this is probably the most important. I will be forthright and say that in adult ESOL we had a chance to watch and look at another department's implementation, and so we kind of didn't have to do our own trial and error. We looked at theirs, and we knew that a piece that was going to be so important to ensure success of the online program was proper training of teachers. And so I'm so proud of what we have developed here in Orange County for our adult ESOL program. In order for a teacher to get access to Rosetta Stone, he or she must attend a training. And not just any training, it is a face-to-face training. And so as a part of our implementation, we knew this was going to be a part of us, so we made sure to set aside, not just any cost for the licenses, but for professional development as well. And at that training, teachers are equipped with the tools that they will need to have their students be successful. When we first introduced this program, because you always have that fear from teachers that you're trying to replace them, and no one can replace the teacher, and I believe this more than anyone, as I was a classroom teacher for more than 7 years. So we wanted to give confidence to them that if you only see your students for, let's say, 6 hours a week, And we're going to tell you that for an hour and a half or 2 hours, we want you to bring them into the computer lab, as is the typical situation in many of our classes. They don't have enough computers in the classroom. What's the value of that time? What is this program about? What is the methodology behind it? What is this dynamic immersion method? What is it about? Are the images appropriate? Which is another thing we looked at as far as the criteria of selecting a program, because we are adult education and we wanted to make sure we had something that catered to adults. But we wanted the teachers to know, and also we wanted them to know the benchmarks that we had set as a district. In our first year, we allowed feedback from the teachers that, is this realistic? Can they achieve this many hours of a week in the program? Um, and also because, they do have a great professional development agenda kind of set up, they allow the teachers to go into the program as a learner themselves, so they can get an idea of what it feels like, whether it's they choose Mandarin or Italian. They can what does it feel like to get words that you don't know what they mean, but then have the images and make the connections. And so the training is so important. And when I say we are a big district, it's a lot to keep up with, but we are committed to the structure that we have in place. And we have administrative support, and that really is the key, when you have that administrative buy-in to support you. And so that training is required for teachers. Once again, we don't require them to register or upload any of their students, because we have that added layer in the system of a coordinator, and so that helps. But for onboarding for teachers, that's the process that we have implemented.
Okay, so Tiffany, let's talk a little bit about blended instruction and how you've actually created value with technology and your teachers in the classroom at the same time.
Absolutely. And I saw that was a question someone wanted to know, as far as how does the blended instruction work. And so we chose a program that would go hand in hand with the materials that we were already using in the classroom, as well as we wanted teachers to use the robust supplementary materials that are available within the online program. And so you have the teacher's guide, which provides small group or even individual activities. You can group students based on same native language or same level of English language proficiency. There's worksheets in the program and quizzes and tests. And I think the quizzes and tests the teachers have actually found very beneficial. Like I stated earlier, all of our classrooms don't have, unfortunate to have enough computers for every student, which I'm sure is a common dilemma. And so, but we are fortunate to have computer labs or maybe a media center, a tech room equipped with enough computers, enough headphones, USB headphones with microphones. And so there's time scheduled for the students to go to the lab, but we didn't want it to be isolated. So we didn't want the teachers to do a great lesson about a certain topic, then you stop, you go to Rosetta Stone, and then you go back to that topic, and it feels kind of disconnected. So the supplementary materials really help tie everything together. And then teachers also love the fact that because it is web-based, it does extend learning beyond the classroom day. And so through assigning a specific type of curricula, they can give students or assign students extra practice at home to work on certain skills.
Perfect, Tiffany. And you talked a little bit about this idea of benchmarking. What is your benchmark for your learners in using technology a week?
Our benchmark that we have set for Orange County is we want to have a minimum of 1 hour of usage per week per student. Now I say 1 hour of usage, so you got to think by the time the student comes to the lab, gets the headset on, turns on the computer, logs in, all of that, that may take 15 or 20 minutes. And so we're talking about 60 minutes of in the program working it, And so actually they may be in the lab for an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes at a time. That benchmark may seem low, but what we thought about was our students, once again, that have the least amount of access to the classroom and to instruction. And so if we have a student that only attends class 6 hours a week, and actually now we have a program that meets, it's a nice community program that meets on Saturdays for 3 hours. It's kind of more just, um, it's a certain population, a lot of grandparents in the community, and they just come for 3 hours on a Saturday. And so for them, they may log in and use it for 1 hour on that Saturday. Now, for our students that are attending class 5 days a week full time, obviously we have higher expectations of those students. Many of them may have access to the lab for 4 to 5 hours a week, but minimum, we said 1 hour a week. And we stuck to that, and that's something where we had feedback because initially we thought 2 to 3 hours, but then we had to think about those students, and the teacher says, well, wait a minute, I only see them face to face 6 hours, and you want me to spend half the time on the computer when I still need that interaction with them. And so we heard that feedback and we adjusted. And so our benchmark has been 1 hour a week, and that has worked pretty well for us. But once again, we have, especially our full-time students, that achieve much more hours. But I will say, I want to add that it's our part-time students that only have 6 hours of instruction a week that are so motivated that they typically have higher average per usage hours than our full-time students because they're only in the classroom for 2 days a week, and so they can't wait to get home and get back on the program. And so I like to point that out when I send the reports out and say, hey, look at this site, that has more usage hours than anyone else in the district. And so that always gets a little healthy competition going amongst the sites.
So speaking of reports, it's not just about setting benchmarks, it's about having a good reporting strategy. Can you share some highlights of how you monitor and manage progress?
Absolutely, and we do monitor and manage progress quite a bit. I have to chuckle because we have been told that we request quite a bit of reports from our Rosetta Stone account manager. But it's really important because you can have the best onboarding process and professional development for the teachers, and you can have the best benchmarks and plans set, but your reporting or your monitoring is really where you get to evaluate if you're being effective with the implementation. And so we look at several different reports. We have a monthly report, and this monthly report breaks down the number of, and you see a screenshot on that slide of the monthly report we have. And what that is one of our tech centers that's listed, Mid-Florida Tech, and each site that's associated with that. And so that's that little community center, that little church. No program is too small for us to have eyes on and look at. And we're looking at the number of students that are registered in the program, have a license. Did they log in and did they use it? What's the percentage for that site? And then of course we can always drill down and do teacher reports, which is what our coordinators do at that level. They kind of drill down and do teacher reports. At my level, I'm looking district wide. We not only do we look at monthly reports, we compare April 2014 to April 2013. How were we doing this time last year? Do we have more students in the program? Do we have fewer students using the program? We also look at quarterly reports, or maybe terms is another word that people are used to, as well as our semester reports. And this is important because when someone asks the question about, do the students incur the cost of Rosetta Stone? In our program, they don't. It's the license is provided to them as being a part of being enrolled as an adult ESOL student. And so because we understand that we're using public funds and we have to be responsible to our stakeholders, we want to be able to show that these funds are being used and used appropriately. And so the monitoring piece is very important, and then it can kind of drive your professional development. One of the things that I'm very excited about is next year we're going to implement something new called on-site There it is, implementation training. And what this is in addition to the great face-to-face training that our teachers will have when they begin to use the program, we're going to have actual experts in the program available on site in the lab or in the classroom when students begin to use it. And so our reports will drive that. So if we see that a teacher came to the program and yeah, the students were already logged in or enrolled because the coordinator did that, but the usage is waning or it's not really there, we can find out if there's a technology issue, certain plugins, or something's not working, or we can also look at, do we need to come out and provide that on-site implementation. And then I see on the slide it mentions web training. If it's okay, Jen, I want to talk about the web training as well.
Sure.
Because we have used webinars effectively as a part of our implementation strategy. As I mentioned, teachers attend face-to-face training initially, and we like to follow that up with a web training. And we use them in kind of different ways because there's 2-hour and 3-hour webinars. So first we kind of do it as a follow-up. We can see when the teacher attended training, and then we, as any one of us, and you attend the training, you get back and you just kind of got to let it soak all in. But the good thing, you go to the lab, the students have logged in and they're working. But then does the teacher really understand what's going on? What are they supposed to be doing? What am I looking for? What are my indicators of success? And so 4 to 6 weeks after the face-to-face training, we follow up with a webinar, and that's where some of the simple questions can be answered. For example, in the program, the core lesson, which is signified by a diamond, I think it is so important. And oftentimes what we find is that students think that the diamonds are kind of like bookmarks or anchors. They're supposed to do everything in between. And so the teacher didn't realize that none of his students were doing the core lesson. They were skipping to the first listening activity. Well, if you don't do the core lesson, you miss out on so much of the vocabulary that's introduced and the imagery. And so we were able to explain that to him on the webinar, and that really connected the dots. So that's one way we use the webinar. Another way we use a webinar is for our more advanced teachers that have been using the program for more than a year, perhaps 2 years now. And so they're into other things as far as how can I design my curriculum. I got a student who's great with reading, but their listening comprehension is not where I want it to be. And when they log in, I really want them to focus on listening. And so they're more advanced, and so we can have webinars about that. And so that's how we've been able to use our webinars to effectively train the teachers. But I'm so excited about our on-site implementation training, which we're set to begin this year, because we think that'll just be another area where we can close the gap as far as professional development with teachers and help the program be more of a success.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And we have a lot more success metrics to talk about in terms of serving the needs of beginning students and early intermediate, and helping with the CASAS requirements that you have. And we've highlighted these success metrics along with many of the things that Tiffany has talked about today in a case study that we're going to make available to everyone. This case study will be available at the end of the webinar. We'll make sure that you have access to it. We have a link that we will provide to you. And in the case study, you'll be able to review all of the challenges that Tiffany has talked about, her implementation strategies, and the metrics that she used for success. So we're going to open it up for questions. And if you wouldn't mind typing in your questions in the text chat box that's provided on the screen. And Tiffany, I'm going to go ahead and display these questions up on the screen so that you'll be able to see them. And as I display them, if you wouldn't mind answering them, that would be fantastic. So please enter your questions in the text chat.
Okay, see a question from Megan from Michigan. Megan, that's a great question, and I think I might have addressed this question during the webinar, but I do want to make sure that everyone knows that how we have chosen to implement it is that it is complementary or supplemental to our other materials, and the cost of Rosetta Stone is not incurred by the students.
So Tiffany, I have another question. You're onboarding students in your program, and you were saying that there are 105 different languages. How do you get them successful in the classroom if their native language is so different perhaps than what the teacher even teaches?
Oh, that's such a great question. And definitely I can draw on my background as a K-12 ELL teacher and former adult ELL teacher. The good thing about our classroom is that while obviously we won't have a classroom where there's 105 languages spoken, but you may have 13 or 14. That seems pretty high, but sometimes we have had that many in the classroom. They all have the same goal, and the goal is to learn English. Now, there are ways, of course, to celebrate the native language, and we have cultural fairs and festivals and things of that nature for our ESOL students. But particularly at the foundations or lowest level of English language proficiency, when you have so many different languages spoken, I think that's where it's so important to address those other learning styles and intelligences, and bring in the music and bring in the visual, as many visual aids as you can, to have different activities that incorporate different learning styles, and so that no matter what native language you speak, if we're learning about, it can be something local, learning about the area, geographic area or something like that. You put it in a song, you put it to a chant, all of the students kind of can catch on. Now, of course, when you have students that have native languages that are that are not from the Roman alphabet, now that can prove to be a challenge. But generally, because everyone has the common goal of learning English, we tell that to our instructors is the only language you need to speak is English, because that's the goal. And it would really be unfair if you were a native speaker of Portuguese, but because that doesn't help the Vietnamese student. And so we focus on English as the primary focus because that's the goal that everyone has.
So Tiffany, how do you work with centers that perhaps are not meeting the benchmark that you want them to meet, whether it's a classroom benchmark or the technology benchmark that you want achieved? What's your process?
So it's we begin it with a conversation with administration for that particular site or that particular tech center. And we just talk about, and sometimes we look at trends over time. So if it's 1 month where it tends to be down or on the decline, for me that's just easy as a phone call. And sometimes the teacher can say, oh hey, I got 8 students that went back to Brazil, they're going to be gone for a month, because that is the nature of our students. They move, they go back and forth to their native country. And so that could explain some things. But if we have a site where we're noticing consistently trends where the benchmarks aren't being met, then that's when we have a talk with the administration, and then we look at those areas of professional development. Is it that, the teacher could use a webinar? Is it technology issues? Do they not have the correct headsets at the site? Or, it could be where, and this happens sometimes, there was a teacher there that was trained, but that teacher is gone, and there's a new teacher there, but that teacher knows nothing about Rosetta Stone. She just knows that her students are going to the lab, and so she can't go in and monitor effectively. And so you kind of find out what the background is, what's the history of it. And so we use those reports to identify those sites, and then we strategically develop a plan, a plan of attack, if you will, but a plan to get the usage where we need it to be. And most of the time, I would say, if anything, it's an issue of technology. Either they didn't have access to the lab. Sometimes, if there's, it could just be different events. If we're at a community center or a library and a place that could be a polling site, we know during election time they're probably not going to be allowed to go on the lab. And so we look at each category or each case on an individual case by case basis, and then we develop our plan of support accordingly.
Fantastic, fantastic. And Tiffany, we're at the end of our webinar today. For those of you that have entered questions in the chat box that we have not had time to get to today, we will be getting back with you and answering your questions for you. In the meantime, what I would like to do is to go back and remind you of a couple of things in terms of the presentation itself. First off, I want to thank you so much for joining. If you have questions and want to get your questions answered versus waiting until after the presentation, you're more than welcome to email them to education@rosettastone.com. You can see the email address here on the screen.